Welcome back to Ask Dan Anything, and today I've got a question. I'm going to keep the name anonymous because it's such an unusual name that it do no help to anonymity if I revealed it. So anyway, this is a question that will relate to a lot of people who feel that they're in a hopelessly overwhelming situation. So here's how it goes. He says, my girlfriend of 2 months is pregnant. We've known each other now for over 8 years from school. We live with our parents, but her family are strictly Christian. He's only on minimum wage. Both their families have said that if she ended up pregnant, they would have to move out and live on their own, so they'd lose support. He says, my girlfriend and I are super happy about having a baby, but I'm also scared. I'm constantly thinking, how do we be able to support our baby and pay for food and clothes and electricity, etc.? She said she's going to look for a job once her sickness benefit from the doctor is expired. She has a personality disorder. So we've got a lot going on there. Unexpected pregnancy. I know these two are quite young as well. So you got unexpected pregnancy. You've got this threat of unsupportive parents at a time where you need them the most. We have a personality disorder mixed up in there, which is always complicated to deal with. We have this concept of religion and being abandoned and ostracized from the family. And then we've got financial threat. A lot going on, a lot of scary stuff there. So while some of you watching might not have these specific scenarios going on, the idea that a lot of things kind of going wrong at once and not really knowing where to turn, I'm sure that's something we can all relate to. So today that's what I'm going to focus on. How do you deal with the seemingly overwhelming, impossible series of events? The first and foremost is to look at the situation and understand that most of the overwhelm that's occurring is not based on what's happening, but on predictions of what will happen. So just notice that so often a situation is totally manageable if you are able, which is most people can't do, if you are able to cut out all the predictions of the future, if you only had what was directly in front of you. So if you look at this situation as it stands, currently he's on a minimum wage job with a girlfriend who's pregnant and a family who doesn't know about it. That's all that's happening right now. He's working and she's sitting there dealing with whatever sickness, personality disorder stuff she's dealing with. That's all that's actually happening. All the stuff he's overwhelmed about and stressed about hasn't occurred yet. It's all predictions in his head. The current situation, totally endurable, totally manageable. And this is really important because as you go through each step of this overwhelming thing, you'll realize that every step along the way is manageable, is endurable. It's only the predictions of the future that make it seem overwhelming. I've been through some similar stuff myself, trying to go through airports with visa issues, so on and so forth. And yet if I stopped and checked in with the present moment at any given time during those struggles, I realized that the current situation, whether I'm talking to a customs official or writing an email or waiting at an airport, all of those were manageable situations. What overwhelmed me was thinking of where it's all leading to. So the first thing you need to recognize when you start overwhelming yourself is that you're overwhelming yourself based on fiction. And I really emphasize that this is fictional, not just because you're making it up and predicting the future, but because you have survived every single fucking thing that's ever happened to you so far. This is really important. When you're overwhelmed and you think, I'm hopeless, I'm powerless, I'm not going to be able to handle this, just to check in with the very 100% true fact that you made it this far through everything. No matter what happened to you in your childhood, no matter what's happened to you in your teen years through high school, no matter how much abuse or suffering or pain or struggle or trial you were put through, you're here today, which means you survived the lot. You got through every single, what is that, millions? Possibly millions of struggles you got through? And you're worried you're not going to be able to get through a couple more? The evidence is overwhelmingly in support of you. Right now you've got a track record of 100%. You're Floyd Mayweather with this shit. You're 50-0, and you're worried about the next fight? Come on. This idea, this bias has reduced the truth. You look at something, you overwhelm yourself with a prediction. It seems bigger than anything you've dealt with before, but that is 100% untrue. It is no bigger than anything you've dealt with before because every single second of time is the same amount of size. You can handle each one of them. It's the prediction of what they're going to be like in the future that blows your mind. So let's deal with the key threats and how you deal with this overwhelm, because it's all good to talk about this, very difficult to actually do something about it, I know. So first threat, that you'll lose support. So in the case of the guy who sent through this question, he's worried that they're going to be out on their own, that they're going to get no support from the family. And the key thing here, and I see this in a lot of people who worry that they're going to lose support, is they're looking at the only avenue of current support, and they think that's all the support available to them. And yet, because it is currently all the support available to them, they haven't been exploring alternative sources of support. I know for a fact in most countries, I know in the country that this guy's coming from, there's lots of government subsidies and support for people in his very situation. There's friends of friends and associates and workmates and other family. There's all the people who aren't directly involved in supporting him now that could be involved if he has the humility and the courage to ask for help. So quite often we think, God, if I lose my family, I'll lose it all. But they are a small piece of the pie when it comes to the support available to you. I mean, if nothing else, turn to the BROJO community. We're here for you. There's so much support out there, but you get blinkered into thinking what you've got now is all you're ever going to have. So opening your eyes to asking yourself the question, what is all the available support on the planet that could help me through this situation? Free, paid for, whatever. All the options, so that you can understand that if the family bails on me on this, which by the way is a totally shitty thing to do, but if they do, then they're just option 1 eliminated, option 1 of 257. And you'll feel a lot less of the overwhelm when you realize that you haven't even scratched the surface on the number of support options available to you yet. Now, one thing that occurs to me in your particular case is that your parents may be more supportive than you think when faced with the actual truth of it. They say they'll kick you out if you get pregnant. It's totally possible. But a lot of people say things until they face the reality of it, and that can often be mind-changing for them. The matter of the fact is, you're not going to be able to hide this pregnancy for very long, so the sooner you get that reaction out of the way, the more time they'll have to digest their reaction, to decide where their values truly stand, to see what happens when they cut you off, to let that happen so that they can get through the process they need to get through. Now, they may end up still being unsupportive, but at least then you'll know before the baby comes. You'll know, I've got to move on to the other 256 options or whatever. You don't want to be doing that in the hospital, you've been lying about why your girlfriend's been putting on weight or whatever. I mean, they're going to find out soon. The sooner the better, because you have more planning and preparation time. For those of you like Game of Thrones, like me, there's a character called Lord Baelish. And every now and then he comes up with some pretty decent gems. Now, one of his is, he talks about dealing with a problem, is that he imagines every possible scenario and prepares for every single one of them. Now, I think this can be a bit obsessive and lead to overthinking, but what I like about this is rather than waiting for a scenario to play out, you actually use the function of worrying and you turn it to your advantage by playing simulations. You say, because what worrying says, what if this happens? But you never answer the question, you just say, what if this happens? Planning, real strategic planning, means you answer that question, well, if that happens, I will. And if that happens, I will. So what you can do in these kinds of overwhelming situations is, what if this happens or what if that happens? Go, okay, what if it does? What will I do if that happens? This worst case scenario planning. If everything goes to shit, how will I react to that? Have a plan for it. And in particular, have a plan for the one thing you can't plan for, the big unknown. The most likely outcome for this situation is it will not go the way you expect. That's the most likely outcome. People are very unpredictable when it comes to if you're trying to predict people when you're emotionally distraught and you're untrained in psychology and so forth, you're probably going to get it wrong. So you need to prepare for that. If this unknown thing happens and it's totally out of my control, totally unexpected, puts me on the spot, smashes me for a loop, whatever you want to say, what would I do? And actually having an answer to that question. Really going, okay, I'll go live there, I'll move there, I'll talk to this person, I've got this backup plan. Having an answer so that when anything happens, you can just fall back on your plan rather than having to having to rely on emotional overreactions. Like I've already said, there's so much support available for your particular situation. If you just get online, quick Google search, and you'll start to see the options. But overall, my advice is to focus on what is best for you in the long term. You know, what kind of support you can set up that even if your family is supportive, you've got something in place for if they stop. You're not reliant, you don't have all your eggs in one basket. You have as much support. You exploit the world for the way it is. You get every single ounce of juice out of what's available to you so that there's a surplus. So that if any one of them falls down or you become ineligible or something goes wrong, you've got a backup and then another backup and then another backup. I'm doing that at the moment as I travel around the UK. I'll ask 16 people if I can stay at their house. 2 will say yes, I'll stay with one, and I've still got 15 other options available. I never feel the panic of being homeless. So, that was an interesting one. Thank you for that. For those of you who have similar questions or anything relating to confidence and social connection and so forth, send them through dan@brojo.co.nz. I can anonymously or anonymously make you a video answering your questions. And of course, check out brojo.org as well if you want to get involved in a supportive community. And I'll see you guys all next time.